Please don't let me be misunderstood, as the song goes. Are you misunderstood? Do you feel like just about nobody understands you? Worse yet, do you feel that you don't understand other people? Do you feel isolated? Do you feel alone? I think we all do sometimes, and some of us feel that way all the time. I feel that way sometimes. But I know what causes it because I'm old and I've been through a lot of stuff and I have had a lot of training. And I'd like to help you take responsibility for things that trouble you rather than allowing you to sit and wallow in a bath of victimhood, wishing those things weren't happening in your life. It's a huge point of view shift. How many things that are wrong in your life right now that you could take control of if you simply made a decision to do it and decided, I'm not going to let this be a problem for me anymore. I'm going to do something about it. But when you feel misunderstood, doesn't that take away from this whole idea of exercising control and responsibility and having an impact on the way my life goes? If nobody understands me, how in the world am I supposed to do that? Well, let's see if we can't take a step back and sort of examine the phenomena of what's going on. Understanding is something that inherently requires communication. And if your communication skills are lacking, then being misunderstood or misunderstanding others is a guaranteed result of that. It's not something that happens now and then. It is the absolute outcome of a communication weakness. And we talk about weakness in ourselves, we all get a little tense. Like, are you criticizing me? Are you telling me there's something wrong with me? Am I supposed to be some kind of a sap or a ninny who has to flock to your podcast just to make myself okay? We just did a podcast last week about inner voices, and we talked about where those inner voices come from. And by the way, inner voices are not communicating with you. They are holding you back. What I'd like to do is have you conduct a thought experiment with me. I want you to think back to a time when you got into an argument with someone very important to you. Maybe it was your significant other, or maybe a parent or your best friend, and you have this horrible knockdown, drag out argument, and you just feel horrible afterward. And you find yourself constantly ruminating on making yourself right in the aftermath of being told you're wrong, and how obsessive that can be. And then with the passage of time, you eventually come to a point where you're saying, wow, that whole thing was so unnecessary. Or maybe there's a third party standing by and they say, no, he didn't say that to you. What he said was, and then they repeat it accurately. But you misheard it, and you start to think about it, and you start to realize you did mishear it. So these are communications flaws. They're so important, you can't afford not to address them. You can't kid yourself about it. You'll pay too high a price. It's vital that you actually come along with me on this short journey into the mechanics of why communication breaks down. The two most obvious reasons that communication breaks down is because you expect someone else to read your mind, or you're not communicating clearly, you're not expressing yourself clearly in a way that is non-threatening to other people, or you're not listening. Those are the two. There's others, but those are the two that really matter. Are you really able to listen and turn up your gain on your microphone here that catches the signal? Can you really listen to another person? Odds are you're not interested. Odds are you're distracted by wanting to express your own ideas. How many times have you been in a conversation where you couldn't wait for the other person to stop talking so you could say the sentence that you'd crafted in your mind, and you didn't hear a word the other guy said? How often did you find yourself wishing the other guy would just shut the hell up? You know, those are the product of many different outcomes, one of which is maybe you're on a short time frame. Maybe you need to get some stuff done. Maybe you should just say, you know, I love talking to you, but I'm on a time clock right now. I've got to get this job done by noon, and I'm kind of stressed. That's effective communication. It's non threatening, it's not rude, it's not going to tell the other person their ideas don't matter. It's just expressing that you're on a clock. You've got somewhere to be, you've got something to get out, and you can do those things. But if you don't and you're pretending to listen, then listen. Don't pretend, especially if the person is the slightest bit important to you. Really listen. Now, you do this by concentrating on the idea of it. I'm going to listen to this person. Yeah, I've got my own stuff to say, but right now, it's more important that I practice the art of listening. When it comes to expressing yourself, how often do you expect someone to read your expressions, to interpret 4 words you said and get volumes of understanding out of it because you just sort of think they are capable of that and you expect them to do that? They should know what's in your mind because they're looking right at you. Well, that's just silliness. And you know that. When I say it that way, it is silly. But what you have to do is put yourself in the other position's point of view and say, what would I have to hear if I was him to really get what it is that I'm saying at this end? Let's say you're very upset because something happened earlier in the day and you come home and your significant other says something like, I need you to mow the lawn, or I need you to do this, or I need you to do that. And it's so insensitive because you've been through the day from hell at work, and what you really need is a lot of TLC and critical care and healing time. And this person so insensitively just says, go mow the lawn. And so you bark at him. You're not the boss of me. You don't tell me what to do. And the next thing you know, you set them off, and then you've got an argument that builds a life of its own. When in fact, you could have said, I'm feeling kind of traumatized right now. I've had a horrible day. Maybe you feel like talking about it, maybe you don't. But whichever it is, you say those words. I don't feel like talking about it. I just need to rest for a bit. I want to go for a walk. Would you like to come? Or I need to be alone. But it's not about you. You didn't do anything to upset me. I just want you to understand that I'm feeling a little tender right now and a little traumatized, and I need to have some help. And next thing you know, that person might say, well, what happened? And you may decide you want to tell the story. You know, my boss said this, or somebody accused me of that, or whatever. Or I screwed something up. Because you do screw things up, you know. We all do. And at the end of the day, the ability to move on comes from a sense of closure that can only be achieved through two-way effective communication. You need to feel acknowledged. The person that you're speaking with needs to feel acknowledged as well. And you can do that just by nodding your head, looking them in the eye. I get that. Yeah, oh man, I understand that. Little things like that go a long way towards reassuring the other person that they are being heard. And then when it's your turn to talk, they're going to be more interested in you. So this communication thing seems so fundamental. It seems like, how can we talk about communication? There are people that study communication as a degree major in college. Well, they're looking at a lot of the scientific nuts and bolts of communication and signal to noise ratios and things of those types. But just the art of writing effectively, speaking effectively, being clear, and not assuming the other person knows things they don't already know. That's going to help you be understood. But that's not the other person's job. That's your job. That's why we started by talking about taking responsibility for the fact that you feel misunderstood. Maybe you are misunderstood, and maybe it's your fault because maybe you're not being clear. Maybe you're clammed up. Maybe you've got everything so bottled up in you that it can't come out because you're terrified of pulling the lid off that bottle and what evil genie may pop out. But at the end of the day, it's your issue. And if you don't understand others, maybe they're not being clear, or maybe they are and you're just not listening. But on that second side of the coin, we can say half of that is your responsibility. So you're 3/4 responsible for the fact that you don't understand other people and you feel misunderstood. 75% of that is on you. That's great news. That's not bleak. That's not blame. That's not criticism. That's the key to the city. When you hear me tell you these things, I'm saying to you, you hold all the power. If you're willing to realize your own level of responsibility and how you might be shirking it, you've got to step up. You've got to take charge. Only you can solve most of your problems. Others can help, but at the end of the day, it's about what you do and it's about your level of personal responsibility. I'm Brett Godfrey, and thank you for listening.